Engine block. We already have it turned over. Now I'm installing the tappets before mounting the camshaft. I need to insert the tappets under the ports here. I moisten the surface of the tappets with oil and install them. Before installing the camshaft, we need to mount the timing gear housing. Alright then, let's get started. The gasket is a metal one with silicone around the edges. Additionally, I spray this gasket with a special gasket preparation. Sometimes in gasket sets, these gaskets are made of paper. It also depends on what kind of gasket set we have. I've installed paper gaskets as well, and everything was fine. There were no leaks, so we can use a paper gasket here too. So right here in this spot. There's a hole here that supplies oil from this place to lubricate the injection pump. So we need to remember not to use silicone or anything else here, so that we don't accidentally block this hole. Now I'm installing this cover. I just need to fit it onto the dowels now. It's mounted. Next we screw it in place. As we can see here, the housing is screwed in at these points. These are the screws that secure the cover. Additionally, I'm installing them with medium strength adhesive. And next we insert the camshaft. We tighten the cover to a torque of 24 Newton meters. Additionally, there are 4 separate 12mm mounting bolts located right at the very top section that hold this timing cover securely in place. I also make sure to use a small amount of medium strength adhesive here as well, just to be extra sure everything stays put. I tighten these bolts to a torque of 60 Newton meters. Once we have the timing cover installed, we can now proceed to install the camshaft together with the gear. Now we need to rotate the crankshaft so that the mark is positioned directly in line between the main axis of the rotating camshaft and the primary crankshaft. To do this, I installed 2 bolts in the crankshaft so I can rotate it this way, just like you can see. Alright, I have it more or less aligned, so it will be easier to set it with the timing mark now. Next, you need to lubricate the journals with oil and the engine's camshaft assembly. Thoroughly apply lubrication to the outer bearing surfaces of the camshaft that will go into the seats. Next, very carefully and gently insert the camshaft into its position. Carefully guide them into the holes, where you will need to gently rock the camshaft back and forth as you slide it in. You must be sure to carry out this specific operation very gently, because as you already know, you have to carefully guide each individual camshaft journal into place. That's how it looks. Gently rock and insert the camshaft. Once you get further in, you simply need to put your hand in from the back here and gently lift the camshaft, and only then slide it in. We have the last journal left. I need to handle this very gently and with a lot of care. If you take a look at the very last camshaft journal, you will see that there is a small hole located right there. You can actually insert a metal hook into that hole, and then you can use it to slowly lift the component up. This is a great technique to use because there is simply not enough room in that specific area to fit your hand in there to get a good grip. Alright, that's the camshaft done. We have it mounted in the journals. Or not completely, because now we need to finally slide it in so that the timing marks line out. Oh, like you can see here. Oh, how should I do this? Oh, I did it wrong. Now I'm sliding the camshaft down and we can see that we have the mark now on the drive gear of the crankshaft. There are marks on the drive gear of the camshaft as well, as we can see. 2 dots, 1 dot on the crankshaft and 2 dots on the camshaft gear. Now I'm installing the bracket. That secures the camshaft. It goes between the camshaft drive gear and the camshaft journal. Now we need to slide it in between the gear. We moved it a bit away, so now we can insert it without any problem. This is the lock between the camshaft and the gear. And then we slide it in together and install two 8mm bolts, tightening them to 24 Newton meters. Additionally, I will screw these bolts in with medium strength thread locker. Originally they didn't have thread locker, but it won't hurt to use it. At this point, as you can see, we have already assembled the timing system correctly. Here there are two small circles and one circle on the notch and between the two small circles. That's how it looks. Now in this spot we will be installing the oil pump. The oil pump is from the same manufacturer as the camshaft. You can see it here. That's how it looks, and these are the numbers on this part. Now I'll take it out. This is what the oil pump looks like. It goes right here in this spot. Yes, we tighten the pump in two stages. First we tighten all the bolts. These are M8 bolts. We tighten all the bolts to a torque of 5, and then we tighten them to 24. What do we need to remember when installing the pump? You need to fill the pump with oil and turn it so that the oil gets everywhere inside. We can't install pumps dry just like that. They need to be filled with oil. This is so it can draw in the first oil more easily. I always pour oil here onto the pump and turn the pump so that the oil spreads, so that it's nicely distributed inside, and then I install the pump already filled with oil onto the engine. I have 4 bolts prepared. Now I apply a bit of thread locker and then I insert the pump. I install the bolts. First we tighten the bolts to 5 Newton meters. All of them. The one securing the pump. Let me check, okay. And then we tighten them to 24 Newton meters in a crisscross pattern. Let's check it once more. So the pump is now installed. What remains in this section is to install the injection pump, the drive gear for the injection pump, and the cover. But now I'll focus on installing the oil pickup and the oil pan. I'll turn the engine over and set it here upside down with the cylinder head facing down. Here, I'll install the pump and the timing cover. I'm installing the crankshaft seal at the rear of the engine. So the seal consists of 3 components. Inside, there's a practical sleeve that allows you to install the seal on the crankshaft. And there's also a specially shaped metal plate that helps us install the seal. It lets you drive it into the correct depth. Yes. That's what it looks like. Yes, there isn't. Regarding the seal, I already have it fully installed. As we can clearly see here, this mounting plate has just reached the very edge of the surface. This is what it looks like after installation. Now I'm installing the seal on the crankshaft from the flywheel side. So let's get started. The surface must be cleaned and degreased. We don't install it with oil, only dry. We position it and press it in. That's what this sleeve is for, this plastic one, to make installation easier for us. I'll move it back a little. The seal from the engine block housing Next, I'll insert the gasket. Now I'm sliding the gasket in from below into the gap. It's more convenient if the engine is upside down with the head facing up as usual. And now you can see that it's more difficult, but I'll put in a screw. Alright, now I'm sliding out the cover. To begin with, the specific screws that are used to hold the seal cover in place must be carefully tightened to a precise torque of exactly 10 Newton meters. At this point, we need to carefully set it so that the outer surface is perfectly flush with the corresponding surface that meets up with the oil pan. I use thread locker on these screws because they can loosen here, and this cover has come loose before. We check if the surface is properly aligned here. When everything is in order, we tighten it with a torque of 10 Newton meters for this screw. The cover is now tightened, and next we trim the excess gasket so it's flush with the surface of the block. Everything inside is already assembled here. The oil pickup is installed. I also use thread locker on the bolts securing the oil pickup. They are tightened to the specified torque, 10 Newton meters. Additionally, I checked everything here, made sure all the connecting rods and main caps are tightened. And now next we install the oil pan. Before installing the gasket under the oil pan, we need to check these spots here to make sure there are no gaps. Because if there is a gap, the oil pan gasket won't seal properly here. When it was assembled at the factory, even these spots here, in this place here, and by this cover, were coated with silicone, and then the entire gasket itself was not coated. We're going to do it differently. We'll coat the entire gasket with this anaerobic adhesive, because from experience we know that installing it dry doesn't really work in this case, and we're not using silicone but this anaerobic sealant instead. The bolts go in up to the thread. Here we have them prepared and cleaned. Here, as you can see, these bolts have two washers. One is thicker and the other is thin. And that's exactly how they need to be placed, as we can see here, like this. The gasket is already installed. I applied the anaerobic adhesive lightly on both sides. And now we're installing the oil pan. If this were a new oil pan, maybe you could do it without the adhesive. But I know this is a more reliable solution because that's how I've always done it. And it's not silicone, so nothing will get inside because it only hardens when there's no access to air. And if it's exposed to air on the surface, it won't harden. We're installing the oil pan. The oil pan mounting bolts, they're already tightened. We tighten them to 24 Newton meters, starting from the center and moving outwards. The bottom of the engine, it's already assembled. Now we're going to turn the engine over so the cylinder head is facing up. We'll place some pegs here and here and set it down on those pegs. And then we'll assemble the top part. Now we're installing the oil filter housing and the oil cooler. Here we have the thermostat, it's been replaced, it regulates the oil temperature. And here at the bottom, in this cover, there's a valve that maintains pressure in the engine's lubrication system. This is where the oil cooler goes. There's one gasket on this side and another gasket. It goes on this side and then it's covered with this cover. Yes, it has been lately. It has been quite warm actually. Now we tighten it for the final time. This should be tightened to 24. We tighten it to 30 because sometimes it loosens here and leaks at the spot where the cover meets. Now we need to carefully establish the precise top dead center position right here, and then install this specialized locking pin which effectively locks the timing gear at top dead center. This is necessary because we can clearly see here that there is a significant amount of play in these mounting holes. That is exactly why we must set it using a high precision dial gauge to find true top dead center, and then we finally install it by firmly pressing this pin all the way into the hole. According to the measurements, in this case the pistons protrude from 0.75 to 0.80. Those who watched earlier know that the block surface was planned here, and the block has been lowered by about 0.35 approximately. We install a thicker gasket here, plus 0.25. The next one is available plus 0.50. We install plus 0.25. I don't have any information anywhere about what it should be like, distance between piston and head. But since they were lowered by 0.35, we'll use an approximate 0.25 gasket. The surface of the block is already cleaned and degreased. The gasket is installed. This is an original gasket from CNH, as we can see from this number here. This is a thickness seal, plus 0.25. Here you can see that education, or optimum, there are these two indentations. Then there are also 3 indents, this is plus 0.50. The standard one has 1 indentation. Here, a standard gasket from the Victor Rhines replacement was supposed to be installed, but I couldn't get such an oversized gasket as a replacement, so it was necessary to buy the original gasket through CNH. The surface is relaxed, cleaned, and now we're installing the head onto the block. Come on. Watch the dowel there to make sure it lines up. Wait. Okay, go ahead. Are you on the dowel? Yes. Alright, lower it down. Okay. Now we're installing the studs. The studs are prepared for installation. They're lubricated with oil. Both the threads and the head. We tighten the cylinder head studs in 3 stages, from the center outward, in the order specified in the manual. The first stage is at 50, the second stage at 150, and the final stage at 201 Newton meters. Now we're putting on the row covers. Here the surface where the seals go must be degreased and cleaned. We put the drive gear for the pump in here because the pump itself hasn't been installed yet. You have to remember, with the taper, the larger side faces the pump. Here the cover is mounted with sealing compound. Originally, it was also sealed here with sealing compound. There is no gasket under it here. We've already applied sealing compound here. Now we're installing the cover. Shimash, are you there? Yeah, I'm good here. Alright, the seal has popped in. New water pump. Tightening torque, 24 Newton meters. Now we're installing the new thermostats. The thermostats are original ones from CNH. There are 2 identical ones. The pulley with the torsional vibration damper is tightened to 200 Newton meters.